72%. That's the percentage of CFOs who are now leading the IT budgeting process. 41% of CIOs have lost their decisions that used to be exclusively theirs. And that's not a trend. That's already happened. In most organizations, it is done. And why did it happen? The CIO kept bringing in architectural diagrams, buzzwords, innovation decks, AI initiatives. The CFO kept looking for a number that connected to revenue. And that number was just never in the deck. IT budgets kept growing. Revenue did not follow. Budgets were funded. Projects were funded. Promises were not kept. And finance finally ran out of patience. But here's the part that does not get said out loud. The CIO, CFO are not misaligned because of a communication problem. They're misaligned because the CIO is optimizing for technology and the CFO is running a business. And nobody built that bridge between those two things. The CIO reports in uptimes and systems. The CFO needs a margin and return. That structural gap exists in almost every organization I've worked with in over 30 years. And it's costing capital every single day it goes unaddressed. The job of IT leadership, the CIO, the CTO, the entire technology function, is to be aligned with the business. Not to chase the next platform upgrade, not to present innovation theater to the board. To understand where the business is hurting and build solutions that address those problems. When that alignment doesn't exist, finance fills the vacuum. I call this authority migration. The structural shift that occurs when technology leadership cannot defend capital decisions and financial control absorbs the function. The CFO does not take over the IT budget because they want to run technology. They take it because someone has to protect the balance sheet. And when the CIO can't explain how a deployment moves a financial variable, the CFO has no choice. And here's where the real capital exposure lives. When IT leadership is not going to the business and asking where the problems are, the business goes out and solves them on their own. Sales finds a platform, marketing finds a tool, operations buys a SaaS solution. They expense it. Nobody flags it. IT never sees it. And now you have 20, 30, 40 platforms running across the organization that nobody centrally knows about. That's called shadow IT. There's no source of truth. Data is scattered across departments that can't talk to each other. And the CFO finds out only when the margin drops. And nobody can explain why. That's not a technology problem. That's what happens when the CIO stopped or never started listening to the business. So, now the CFO owns the IT budget, and they're approving spend that they don't have the context to evaluate, not because they're not capable, but because nobody gave them the questions. They are approving modernization programs because the CIO says it's competitive necessity. That's not a financial defense. That's a guess with a signature on it. The CFO is sitting under the lights for rising IT costs with no clear line to business outcomes. And that stagnation, that hesitation before every approval, is what happens when the structural misalignment never gets fixed. Before any technology capital gets approved, 3 questions need clear answers. First, how does this deployment change the unit economics of the business? Cost per transaction, cost per customer, cost per product. If leadership cannot identify that number, then there's no financial model behind the proposal. Second, which financial variable moves if this project succeeds? Operating leverage, gross margin, cash timing? If the answer cannot name one of those, the investment has not been economically validated. And third, what is the exposure if the savings assumption fails? Every modernization proposal claims efficiency. If the downside case is not modeled, the forecast contains unsecured assumptions. And if your IT leadership cannot answer those 3 questions, the proposal is not ready. Send it back. Because here's what it looks like in a room. You have a CIO defending budget growth with competitive necessity. That collapses under scrutiny. Then you have a CIO who demonstrates a unit cost reduction that protects operating leverage during a revenue contraction. Survives the same meaning. The technology may be identical. The capital condition is completely different. Financial literacy determines whether the board sees an investment or a liability. Not capability, not delivery record, not years of experience. Math. Capability always loses to math. The CFO didn't ask for this responsibility. They took it because no one else was protecting the balance sheet. The question now is not whether they should be running IT budget decisions. That decision's already been made. The question is whether they have what they need to do it without getting burned. And that answer to that starts with the CIO finally learning how the business makes money.